Hey everybody, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time you're watching this. This is Coach Joe Selby from Rocket Fitness, and I'm here. I said I would do a video about how to modify the exercises for the 30-day bodyweight challenge. I'm going to do a couple of videos. This first one is about how to do modifications that make the exercises easier for you. The next one's going to be about how you make them harder, but I figure I'd start with this one. So we're going to talk about how to do push-ups that are modified and easier. We're going to talk about how to do planks that are modified and easier, and we're going to talk about how we do squats that are modified and easier. Okay? Make sense? Okay, so to start with, we're going to talk about push-ups. And to do that, I got to get down on the floor here. Also have to do that for the planks. So the basic, simplest way to make a push-up easier is to put less weight on your upper body. Push-up is an arm and a chest exercise. If you're feeling it up here in your neck or in your shoulders, you're doing it wrong. What's really, really important with push-ups is form. And I'll talk about that a little bit after I demonstrate. But the easiest way to make a push-up easier is to do it from your knees. If you have a hard floor, like you have hardwood floors in your house, I strongly recommend that you get a towel, fold it up a couple times and put that under your knees, or a blanket or something like that. Or if you've got a yoga mat and you want to use that, because you don't want to hurt your knees doing this either. So you want to be, that's not where the work is happening. The work's going to happen in your chest and your arms. So how do you do a push-up from your knees? Well, it seems like that would be kind of obvious, but it actually isn't. Obviously, the obvious part is you want to be on your knees. So let me scoot up here. So if you were put your feet down flat when you're doing push-up from your knees, first thing that's going to happen is going to kind of bow your hips down a little bit. So what you want to do is lift your feet up into the air, like mine are now. And that way, the other thing that happens is, instead of you being right on top of your kneecaps, you're on top of this fleshy part right at the top of your thigh. So you just, like that. Now the key thing with a push-up, look at my back. Back straight. You don't want to be like this. That's not a push-up. You don't want to be like this. Although there are times when you might want to do that if you're trying to make it harder. But to do a push-up from your knees, you just want your legs on the floor, on the meaty part, right above your kneecap. Hands a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, or if they're really hard to do that way, you can spread your arms a little bit wider. And I'll show you that. I'll turn around and show you that. But you want to go down and up. Controlled motion. You also don't want to do this with your head or this. Your neck and your head need to be in line with your spine while you're doing push-ups. Kind of to show you from another angle. It's the front view, like this. Right? Make sense? You put your arms closer together, they get harder. Put them a little bit farther apart, they're easier. Wide push-ups can be super easy for some people. Like I can do like 100 like this, no problem. But that's how you make a push-up easier. That makes sense? I'm asking that question a lot, aren't I? Okay. Hopefully it does make sense. The whole idea is to put less pressure on you. I will show you another way to make a push-up easier in just a sec. Okay, so another way to make push-ups easier, and this is especially good for people who have shoulder problems, or particularly weak upper bodies that still want to do push-ups. They want to work up towards it. What you do is you find a table or a counter, something that's about hip level for you. A little higher is okay, but any lower than that, and I start to think you should just go to your knees. But what you do is put your hands on the table, straighten your legs out behind you, in a straight line, just like you were going to do a push-up from your toes, and you go down to the table and up. If that's too easy, then you should go down to your knees. But if it's not, that's a great way to get started with push-ups, and you build up your strength. I generally say if you get to the point where you can do one set of that at about 10 or 15, then it's time to go to the next hardest one, just to keep building up the strength. But again, you do what you can, and you do what works for you. So we're back down to the floor to talk about planks. Planks are super underused, really great exercise. Planks work your abdominal muscles and your stabilization muscles all around your core. Lots of people work real hard at doing things like crunches, and as I've said many times to people, if they listen to me, don't do crunches. Crunches are bad. It's not a functional exercise. Your spine was not meant to do this. And deliberately doing that repeatedly is just a terrible idea, especially the older you get. Spinal flexion on purpose, not a good thing. But I won't go into too much of that. I really want to talk about how we make a plank easier. Some of it's very similar to the whole principle behind the push-up. You go from your knees. Again, you're generally going to find you want to keep your back straight. You don't want it to do this. You don't want it to bow, and you don't want it to be all arched. You want a straight, strong back up from your knees, just like we did in the push-up. You want to be on the top of your leg, and you just hold your plank like that. That's how you can make a plank easier. You can also make it easier by going down to your elbows, so you're not up quite so high. That works great too. The main thing with the plank, though, is the minute that it gets to where you can actually do it relatively well in that position, you want to move up to the next level. Same thing with planks and push-ups. If you really can't do it down on the floor, you can find a counter, you can find a chair, do it that way, and you'll still get some work. It's not going to be the same work, but it's going to be work. And if that's what you can do, that's what you should do. Build up the strength, move on to the next level. Got it? So now we're going to go to to me, this is the really hard thing, is how to adapt a squat. Okay, so this one, the camera angle is a little weird because you need to pay attention to my knees here, because first we're going to talk about what does good form in a squat look like. People get really focused on being able to get low in their squats, and getting low in your squat is a great thing. That should be your objective. However, you need to do it in a way that doesn't hurt your knee. If you can't go lower without getting your form out of whack, you shouldn't go any lower. That's sort of the first step to talking about the difficulty level with squats. So let's do form first. My legs into the picture here. Okay, so you want to stand basically with your feet about hip width, shoulder width apart, right? That's a good squat. Your feet basically pointing in front of you. If they spread out a little bit at an angle, that's okay too. That's not a huge problem. And the reason it's not a huge problem is because there's nothing bad about it. It just works different muscles. The squat really needs to work the quadriceps and your glutes. So this part of your leg and your bum right there. Okay, so you go down into a squat. It's like you're sitting down in a chair. What you don't want to do, I'm going to show bad form first. Bad form is knees out in front of the toes. Your knee goes out in front of your toes, that's bad form. Then you're putting all the weight on that joint, on that knee joint, and that's not good. What you want to do is you want to go back like you're sitting down, like that. Great trick for squats, like you saw what I just did with my arms. Keep your arms, your hands out in front of you. It kind of acts as a counterweight, so you don't feel like you're going to tip over. Another trick to use is lift your toes up so that your weight's on your heels. When your weight's on your heels, you can't stick your knees out in front of your toes. Ha-ha! Doesn't that work? Nifty and dandy and cool. And now that you don't need to see my legs so much, I'm going to see if I can do this to give you an idea of how you can make you can do a modification so that you don't actually have to do a squat. People who have knee problems or very weak quadriceps probably want to start at a much simpler level. Your best friend is a wall or a door behind you, because you can do what's called a wall sit. Basically works the same muscles, but it's less tension on your knee joint and focuses more on your quadriceps and your glutes. The difference is that instead of doing reps, you want to go for time. I'd say, in this challenge, if it shows 1 rep, you probably want to look at 3 to 5 seconds of wall sit for every rep that's prescribed in the challenge. And I'm going to adjust the camera, and then we'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's give you a little demo here. Basically, you find a surface, a hard surface, put your back up against it, and just slide down until your thighs are parallel with the floor. Pretty simple, huh? You hold that. But holding that for time takes a lot of work. Again, form is key. You don't want your knees to track out ahead of your toes at all. Another way to do that one is if you've got a stability ball, you can, one of those big rubber balls, if you've got one of those, you can put that between you and the wall or you and the door, and instead of holding that wall sit position, you can roll up and down that surface with your back. Pretty cool, huh? You do that, the wall supports you, keeps you stabilized so that you don't have to work those knee joints quite so much. I hope this has been helpful. I hope this has been cool. If you have questions, just leave me comments. I'm happy to answer them. You can go to my website, it's weekandrock.com, and you can leave me comments there. And if you haven't friend requested me yet, send me a friend request. It makes it a lot easier for us to communicate. Have a fantastic day, and next up is going to be the How to Make It Harder set of videos.